Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Building Cyber Resilience with Business Continuity Planning. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. You may have joined the presentation listening using your computer's speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the telephone, just select phone call in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. LRQA will share a recording of the webinar with everyone who has registered in the next couple of days. You'll have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. Any questions that we do not have time to answer during the session will be responded to after the webinar. For your information, we will be running some live polls today. Please note that the responses are anonymous and the results will only be shared as a percentage result. It is now my pleasure to introduce your speakers for today. Katerina Liana, Core Technical Manager at LRQA, and Nick Prescott, Principal Consultant CISO at LRQA Netitude. Katerina Liana has been with LRQA for 19 years and within the certification industry for 34 years. She is the LRQA Core Product Technical Manager and the Product Manager for ISO 22301. Katerina is a lead assessor for several management systems standards, including ISO 22301 Business Continuity Management Systems since 2012 and ISO 27001 Information Security Management Systems since 2005. Nick Prescott is the Principal Consultant, CISO at LRQA Netitude, and Nick's primary focus is advising companies on cyber strategy, tactics and operations to assist, advise and fix on improvement and resilience in the client's information security programs. His aim is to take a pragmatic and realistic approach into improvement in cybersecurity postures for businesses, whether they aim to be within the FTSE 100 or small tech startups. So before we get started, we have our first poll for today. And just a reminder, the responses are all anonymous and the results will only be shared as a percentage result. So I'll just open the first poll for you now. And the first poll question is, how confident are you in your organization's approach to cybersecurity? So please choose one of the following. The first option is, we have a proactive approach to cybersecurity that I feel confident in. The second option is, we have a reactive approach and there are gaps that we need to address. And third option is, I don't feel confident that our systems are resilient or robust enough. So I'll just leave that open for a few more seconds for you to cast your votes. I can see the results coming in there as we speak. So once again, if you just select one of the three options on your screen, and we'll just give you just a few more seconds. Lovely, thank you. So let's have a look at the results there. So the first option wins with 56% of the vote, then followed by 34% and 9%. Thank you very much for your responses on that. And I will now hand over to Katerina to begin her session.
Okay, thank you very much. And good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you find the webinar useful and interesting, and both myself and Nick will be available at the end to answer any questions you have. Next slide, please. So every day at work, we come across problems that makes our workplace an interesting one. Sometimes these problems can be easy things to fix. You just manage them straight away, but sometimes they can become bigger problems for the company, or even turn into a big crisis that needs to be addressed because it can impact the operation of the company. So it's quite important that each company has defined criteria on what is an incident, what is a crisis, because these are two different things. And Nick will be elaborating a bit later on crisis management plans. And so, as I said, it's important to have criteria to address an incident, a crisis, before it impacts your operation. It was good to see that based on the poll answers, a lot of you have a reactive approach, and this is where the business impact analysis that's referenced in ISO 22301 can come and help you, because it's a structured way to be able to determine what can affect your operation, what can have an impact to the business, what type of event can disrupt operations. It will help you determine what is the financial impact, the legal impact, the potential legal impact, the impact on your reputation as well, and then help you guide determine what are the controls and measures that you need to take to make sure that in case there is an event, you'll be able to resume activities and your critical activities and operations in a time frame that you have specified. And this is what ISO 22301 really helps you. So an incident like a stolen laptop can be easily addressed if it's reported quickly. It is quickly excluded from connecting the work from connecting to the network. But think, if it wasn't reported, if it's still on the network, if it contains confidential information that might be leaked, would that be a simple incident, or could that turn into a crisis for the company? So a crisis usually is something that needs really quick decision making in a short time to make sure that it doesn't impact your operations. Another thing that the business impact analysis is important is because it leads you to determine what type of plans you need to be able to respond to a disruptive event or a crisis, and help you recover and address situations like that before it becomes too late for the company. And this is where you build your business continuity plans and even your crisis management plans. Next slide, please. There are a number of situations that can impact a business today. I'm pretty sure that most of you are aware of these things because, as I said, companies come across problems during their everyday operations. Supply chain failures is something quite important, because if there is a problem, you won't have access to raw material, maybe to products that you need to incorporate in your final product services, or reliance on a sole supplier. What happens if that supplier goes out of business? What would the impact be on your business and your operation? Pandemics. When I first started as a business continuity assessor some time ago, it was usually one of the plans that companies didn't have in place because they weren't usual. But having gone through COVID, all of us, we know how a pandemic can really affect a business. So you need to consider if you're really prepared. I think it was a good exercise for everybody to avoid similar situations in the future. There are some unexpected situations like earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, for which you need to have plans as well. Product recalls, we see these type of things quite often in the news and the media. Do they really take a company out of business? Probably not all the times, but there is a problem that's created when you see, for example, a lot of product recalls from a food industry. As a consumer, would you really trust them? So things like that usually have an impact on the brand image of a company and makes consumers or customers lose trust in a company. And it's similar with environmental issues, especially when there's a major spill. There are a lot of examples of big companies that had to come out into the media and confess that they were responsible for a major spill, had to tell the community or the country what measures they're going to take to address these spills, and how much money they're going to spend to address these spills. They had to come out and apologize. Again, they're still operating, but things like that have an impact on your brand image, but also makes you a target for regulators as well, because they keep a close eye on you, and it has a financial impact as well because you can get big fines. Next slide, please. Terrorist attacks, wars, always disruptive for company operation. Loss of key staff. Do you have a policy in place that says that our key staff shouldn't travel together in case there's an accident and you lose all of them? This is quite important. Accidental disasters like a fire or a gas leak, utility outages that can have an impact on your network not working. You might be out of power. Man-made disasters like road and rail disruptions as well, when there are strikes and people go out on the streets and close railways or roads. Damage to infrastructure that happens could be a result of sabotage as well. Technological disasters, failures to IT systems. A lot of systems don't always work properly and as they should. Corrupt software, if you don't have policies for people not downloading things that they shouldn't, that could create a problem to your network. And of course, cyber incidents or attack. We've seen a big increase in incidents like that that have an impact on companies. And I think it's a good opportunity to hand over to Nick to detail how cyber resilience can be achieved and strengthened through business continuity. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening for those who are joining across the different time zones. I'm here to talk about the building cyber resilience. So we can move on to the next slide, please. So the key relationship between incident response and business continuity is really boiled down to the incident response is the kind of the initial bit, where the business continuity and recovery can take a long time. So in many aspects is just dealing with the incident first, making sure that you can contain the spread of the incident is a really crucial one, and then dealing with the other parts of the incident and also the business continuity plan at a further stage. So move on to the next slide. So what are we preventing when it comes to a cyber event? And really this is from something called the Lockheed Martin kill chain. It's not quite as detailed as the MITRE attack framework, but essentially what the adverse person will be looking to do is to create an initial compromise, and that can usually be done through social engineering, spear phishing, ransomware, this kind of stuff. And one of the things that we've certainly seen a lot of at the moment is the kind of currency of your email. Now, what I mean by that is that we see a lot of attacks, especially coming out of Russia and all those types of places, where basically they're looking to get the email addresses of people, send out emails, getting people to click on stuff, but also really targeting things like the finance department as well. So really anything to do with invoices, because a lot of cybercrime is related to financial gain. But really what the hacker is looking to do a lot of the time is establish a foothold, looking to deploy some malware, ransomware, deploy some kind of command and control, as we call it in the industry, a C2 type environment, and then kind of build up through third-party application exploitation. Really, once you get a foothold into the network and the systems, you're looking to escalate privileges. And that is through going through the admin accounts, going through what they call canary service accounts and other service accounts and stuff like that, and finding a way of doing kind of lateral and kind of up and down. So we kind of call it compass movement, so east-west movement, but we also call it north-south movement as well. So as you go up on the level of privileges, you go much more to a kind of northern level, but then also is kind of get lateral movement across applications and things along that line. Once you're kind of doing that, you're in the internal reconnaissance, moving across the network, maintaining a presence. And we've seen a lot of instances where the adverse actor kind of got in quietly and they're kind of going around the network and they're going around the environment and really kind of seeing what data there is to do there. Usually then what happens is once they've done a kind of internal recon, they understand the lay of your network architecture, they understand your systems, applications, data, and the value of that to your business. They will then probably even deploy the ransomware at this late stage, or hold some kind of like cyber ransom. So basically they will take the data, they will then say pay us a ransom to get it back, and it's out in the wild. So there's been lots of instances where not every attack happens in this particular order, but we do see a lot of instances whereby the staging of an attack can follow this high level kind of attack profile. Next slide, please. So what is the cyber resilience in action? So move on to the next slide. So really what we're looking to do here is the three main steps, and these three main steps very, very loosely aligned to the NIST CSF, of which a new version came out earlier this week, and a lot of it is around the governance side. But really when you look at the yellow boxes here, it's all about the protection of prevent, discover and detect. And what you're looking for there is making sure that you kind of prepare for the worst and kind of hope for the best. The kind of prepare to fail, fail to prepare, that kind of scenario type in there. But really, there should be a lot of proactive systems in place. There are lots of different systems in the market. I'm not going to list them all, but really they should be there to kind of protect your network and discover any anomalies which do come within your network. The quicker you can detect it, less chance that they would have got those privileges, lateral movement, upward movement, sideways movement, and access to the real kind of crown jewels, all the gold bars of your data as well. The key second part is the response side, is making sure you have clear lines of communication. In any incident that happens, it's making sure that you have good speed, momentum, and communication within your teams, within your larger within your company, within your suppliers and partners, so that you can really respond and contain and eradicate. And one of the key things in any incident when the response happens is knowing when the bad news stops coming. Someone's laptop's gone missing, a bit of data's gone there, the data's gone here, we've discovered this has happened. Really the key thing here is making sure that once the leaks stop happening, you can contain it, then you can start doing the recovery process as well. And that's a really, really important piece, is learning, having lessons learned, making sure you have good communications in place, and making sure you kind of get all the bad stuff out of the way. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we're looking to do here is really understand the level of threat detection that happen in place. If you look at the bottom one, it's really having those systems in place that you can kind of detect the bad stuff. Really, but what you want to be able to do is as you mature on that space, is really have the correlation to the indicators of compromise, understand the bad behaviors, and be able to kind of hunt them down. And really, once you get on the maturity and that level, build up that resilience, you can get the intrusion points within the kill chain. And really, essentially, at the very top level of the maturity, you want to be able to track those bad things as they happen and kind of remediate them as soon as possible. The quicker you can stop the bad threat from happening, and one of the things that certainly can happen is remediate it straight away. So it's basically find, fix, and destroy the threat hunts before they start the whole lateral movement. Next slide, please. So really the kind of 5 C's is cyber resilience, and the first one is really the change. Technology changes rapidly. I'm sure, you know, if you just think of the iPhone, look how much that's come on. Every year there's a new iPhone or an Android phone, and it's faster, better, lighter, more powerful than it's done before, and so is the technology in your business. One of the sort of things I certainly see is in my kind of CISO travels, is you hear technical debt, legacy systems the whole time, and the really thing is, it is certainly if it ain't broke, don't fix it type mentality. Really making sure that IT doesn't work like that. It's making sure you keep it up to date, making sure your operating system is up to date, and that's where you know, if you build up your technical debt, it's a bit like being slow and playing the student loan type thing. You know, the longer you leave it there, the worse it will get. The key thing is making sure you keep up with the technological changes. The compliance side of it, there is so much compliance stuff coming up, especially for those on the European side. You've got NIS2, you've got DORA, you know, all across the world. New data privacy acts are always coming out. New cybersecurity acts are all coming out, and the compliance world is always changing. You know, data-driven industries are very much a key part of the 21st century, and legislation does react slower than technology changes, but it's the ones you need to respond to. The cost of cybersecurity is obviously the biggest considerations for a lot of businesses. You know, cybersecurity teams aren't as kind of well cherished as maybe some of the sales teams are, because essentially, you know, the return of investment isn't going to affect the profit line, but it can certainly help with any potential loss that happens. And the key thing is also, when you look at things like ISO 27001, is making sure that in the event of a cybersecurity incident, the business can still get going. In the cybersecurity industry, you know, we always talk about the technical stuff as well, but when you talk to a lot of chief financial officers or chief information officers, it's the ability to trade, it's the ability to continue that production line, it's the ability to keep the shop open, it's the ability to take those car payments, and that's really the continuity of operations is absolutely critical when you put together your business continuity and incident response plan. What plans do you have in place to make sure that you have a continuity of operations in the business that you're doing? And business needs to have a wide level of covers. You know, I think the NASA space shuttle has something like 116 different incident response scenarios. We're not saying that everything needs to be at the level of the space shuttle, but what you certainly need to do is understand that you have those run books, playbooks for those critical things that happen in there. So we'll move on to the next slide, please. So, you know, the big 4 R's of a cyber resilience plan is test how you respond to the impact of an incident. It's all very easy to react, everyone to pile onto an incident response bridge, talk about the incident for an hour, then decide in the next hour you're going to have another response. It's making sure that you have cool, calm heads, clear thinking. It's not the reaction that counts, it's the speed of response. It's making sure that you have the speed, momentum, communication of a cyber response. Also, the other key thing is like the reputation. There's nothing worse than being told on Twitter, even by the likes of Elon Musk, is that the company's completely done over. Is making sure that you maintain your reputation, be proactive with that crisis communication side, making sure that you keep your customers and clients and stakeholders informed, but tell them the right stuff, be honest and transparent. Don't kind of cover things up. We've seen it so many times, you know, with cyber incidents, that people cover things up and then it just gets worse. You know, it's just stick to the honesty and transparency. And on the regulatory side, making sure you've got the right levels of compliance. You know, you may think, oh, well, we'll cut corners, we'll do what's needed to be done. But at the end of the day, when your regulators kind of come after you after the incident, they will unturn every stone. Make sure that doesn't happen. And also the key thing is remediation, making sure you can get your core systems up and plan. When was the last time you tested a backup that you know, make sure on a critical system that actually works? Don't leave it to languish too long. Next slide, please. So the key thing here is really, this is something that we do, is to have the right level of run books. These are the run books that we tend to certainly kind of work with companies on, making sure we have the policy in place, making sure we have senior engagement in place, making sure we have a plan. It is what happens, who calls an incident, how does it escalate, how do you triage, when do you call a bridge, when do you call that person at 3 a.m. in the morning to get out of bed and run back into the office to kind of do the critical work, and make sure that you have the right level of run books in place, for different scenarios. We're not talking these space shuttle levels, but what we are saying is kind of think of the big ones that happens and making sure that they're all kind of interlinked with each other. Next slide, please. So really, you talk about things like indicators of compromise. So we've got here things like unauthorized access, and they can be things like account compromise, third parties, social engineering, hacking, physical. I'm not going to go through the kind of green boxes, but really just talk about the red and the yellow boxes here as well. Just every business has a slightly different threat profile, but really understand how the yellow boxes really kind of link up to the main threat attack vector that we're doing here. We move on to the next slide, please. So here you kind of got denial of service. Key thing to understand with things like denial of service, they tend to be used in conjunction with other things, and they don't tend to necessarily be highlighted as a security instance in the first instance. Network outages happen the whole time, but really it's to kind of understand that you've got that network resilience to make sure that you can hold it, especially if you've got on-premise applications or operational tech applications. It's to really make sure you have that depth and breadth to make sure that you can really kind of leverage your network power to kind of deal with it as well. The use of cloud applications and use this kind of increased speed of the internet, you have to have a really large DDoS attack or DOS attack to really kind of make life uncomfortable for you. And make sure you build out the resilience in terms of your network infrastructure and distributed network traffic. Next slide, please. Malware, this is always the thing that, phishing emails always happen, people still clicking on stuff. Make sure your staff are aware of what they're clicking on. Don't allow executables on your end user machine. Don't give people local admin rights. If on a corporate machine, make sure that people can't download stuff, because the malware is the stuff that creates the command and control, the internal recon and stuff along those lines. And it's really key as part of security awareness training to make sure all of that is in place. Next slide, please. Insider threat. This is a growing thing. You have the disgruntled employee, the opportunities. One of the certainly things we have seen, given the geopolitical landscape, is people from OCGs, organised criminal groups. You have opportunists, but sometimes you just have the disgruntled employee. And so really make sure that you do your background vetting checks. They have the limited privileges and making sure is that that's kind of kept in control. You do sometimes have accidental data loss, but making sure that that there is zero trust with the machine. People only have access to data that they need to do their security controls. DLP, some people call it a dirty long project, but essentially it is stuff that needs to be done. Classify the data, proactively mark that data, and monitor the user behavior around that data. Next slide, please. So what we kind of got here is kind of ransomware, and this is the big one here. It's the one where it's usually used as the latest stage action, an extra point of action to kind of cover the area once the bad guys have got hold of the data. There have been leaps and bounds in technology in order to kind of prevent ransomware from happening, and you can see a slight shift going from ransomware much more to kind of phishing on emails and insider threats being an attacking vector. But really, ransomware is still very prevalent. And any unprotected network can certainly be subject to a ransomware attack. Next one, please. So really the key thing is not only the technical response, but also the crisis communication response that you have from this as well. So we'll move on to the next slide. So the key thing is when you do the crisis communication is it's really interesting, I think, when any company does their press release, is to really get these basics right. What has happened? When has it happened? What you're still learning? Who is affected? What's been done to rectify the situation? When will the next update be provided? Announcing news as it breaks. The thing is to kind of keep ahead of that news cycle. Be proactive in that communication and escalate it up. If you do get a call from Jake from the Daily Mail or Brad from the New York Post or someone from Sky News or CNN, don't ignore it. Be proactive. Stick to the script, stick to whatever, and make sure you have pre-planned communications in place. At the end of the day, you know what you know at the time, and the key thing is to show that you have proactive response, both intern to your internal employees, also to your external employees. Don't give away stuff internally that could aid the attacker, because you don't know whether your communications network could be compromised. Next slide, please. So the thing is making sure you have good comms. The security incident executive teams are the ones that need to kind of really know everything, understand the strategy and how you put it in there. Infrastructure teams can coordinate with forensic investigators, make sure they have a clear brief of what they're looking for. The things that hold up forensic investigations is not knowing where the keywords are, where the key servers are, and making sure that when you do the imaging of the forensic analysis, that it's done in a legal defensive way. Client management, they're the guys that want to know more than anything else. They're going to want to know more than the general public. So really, making sure that you have clear client communication, because you may have their data. They're the ones at risk here. They're the ones who are the victims, and they're the ones that you should be taking it seriously. And also with the media and the social media, journalists can jump all over it, come to conclusions. If journalists do put out the wrong tweet there, correct them, stick to the facts, stick to the script, keep the narrative going, but be honest and transparent at the same time. Next slide, please. So the post-incident reporting side, go on to the next slide, is making sure that you have a constant stream report. One of the things that we really find really important is making sure as soon as the incident happens, work out who's taking the logs, who's taking the notes, who's keeping all that information. One of the busiest jobs in any incident team is the incident coordinator. They're the ones organizing the meeting, taking down the notes, and keeping a record of everything that happened, because that will really help in the report. At the end of the day, the report is essentially a storyline. We're making sure that you keep in control of the storyline. In terms of things like root cause analysis, making sure that you understand what happened, why it happened, and how do you prevent it from happening again. Next slide, please. So we'll move over to the poll question, and thank you very much for your time.
Yep, great. Thanks for that, Nick. So just a reminder that you can still ask questions throughout the presentation by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel, and those questions will be answered towards the end of this webinar during our Q&A session. So we'll go ahead and open up our second poll now. So the question is, will your organization be looking for any of the following services in the next 12 months? And you can tick all that apply here. So your options are, let's see, so the first option is ISO 27001 and or ISO 22301 certification. Second option is ISO 27001 and or ISO 22301 training. And the third option is resilience advisory. Fourth option is crisis management planning. And the fifth option is incident response services. So once again, you can select all that apply here. So I can see the votes coming in. We will just give you all a few more seconds to vote on that. So please cast your vote. You can still see those responses still coming in there, so please don't hesitate to cast your votes now. We'll just keep the poll open for a few more seconds. Okay, so just a couple more seconds and we'll close down the poll. Great. So thank you very much for sending in your responses there. So as we can see, the top answer is 55% ISO 27001 and or ISO 22301 certification. Nick, do you have any comments on the results at all?
Yeah, those were all very interesting. I think obviously the audience are looking for the ISO 27001 certification or the 22301 certification. And I think it's really important that, yes, it's all very well going for the certification, but making sure you have those good plans and processes in place, because once you get ISOs, it's over a 3-year cycle. And I'm sure Katrina will back me up in saying is that many of the auditors, when they do this, is making sure you have kind of continuous improvement. So ISO 27001 is not just about a tick in the box exercise. It's also about a continuation of business improvement and processes, and showing that when you do have those surveillance audits, is that you show that you are refining and practicing your incident response plans.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And now we will hand back over to Katerina for her presentation.
Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about risk mitigation in relation to both ISO 27001 and ISO 22301. So next slide, please. Both these standards, like the majority of the management system standards, are risk-based standards. So it's very important that any company, even if you don't go for certification, it's very important that you have in place a robust risk management and mitigation strategy, because that will help you navigate through challenges when you come across them. If there's a disruptive event or any type of serious incident, if a crisis comes up, and of course it will strengthen resilience within your organization. It gives you an early warning system for things that can happen. Nick talked about threat intelligence before, which is an important aspect of risk management. And it's also important for business continuity, because first you need to detect potential threats or things that can disrupt your operations, and then you move over to your business impact analysis, which tells you over time what can impact your business from a financial perspective, from a reputational perspective, from a legal perspective. And that then helps you set priorities. What are your critical operations? What do I need to resume first? Involving, of course, supplies where needed, letting your clients know, because as Nick said, communication is quite critical, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on as well. And what you need to do in due time before it's way too late and there's an impact on your business that you can't recover from. Risk management, of course, helps you mitigate problems and risk with suppliers as well, because that's one of the things that you need to look into, because your supply chain can cause a lot of problems and have an impact on your operations. And once you've done your risk assessment, your business impact analysis, that will lead you to the type of plans you need to have in place that you will invoke in case there's a disruption, and that will support you in making the effect of interruptions to your operations less and more smooth. So something happens, you invoke your business continuity plan, you resume operations, and there's a number of steps that you need to take afterwards to make sure that you investigate the incident. You look into what went well when you invoked your plan, what lessons you've learned, what can be done better next time, and that leads into the continuous improvement cycle that is a basic element of all management system standards. Learning from what happened to you, how can I avoid this from happening to me again in the future, and adapting all the time to the evolving risk landscape because the changes happen every day. Next slide, please. Now, in the new version of 27001 that came out in 2022, if I'm not wrong, there is reference to ICT readiness, which is information and communication technology readiness based on the objectives that you have set for business continuity and the objectives that you have set for as a company for your ICT continuity. So there's a link to business continuity. ISO 22301 has a bit of a more holistic approach because it doesn't it sees wider threats to a company, as we saw at the beginning of this webinar, with all potential events that can cause disruption. And it's not only restricted to information security, IT systems, cyber attacks as well. So it has a wider and a more holistic approach than 27001. There are a lot of common requirements amongst the two standards, so it's very easy to integrate your management system if you're thinking of implementing the management system for one or both of the standards. And for me, one of the two most important aspects of these two standards is communication. It was referenced many times before. Clear channels of communications with your suppliers, with your clients, internally as well. What's the chain of command? Who will invoke the plan? Who do we need to involve? When are we going to invoke the plan? What needs to be done? Who needs to be involved? How we are going to address the issues? Communication is a major aspect for both standards. And the second one is fostering a compliance culture within the organization. And when I say compliance, I don't mean only compliance with legal requirements, because there are quite a lot of requirements out there that have to do with cybersecurity, data privacy, and protection. It's mainly compliance with besides legal requirements, compliance with the company's policies and procedures. That's something that you need to constantly work upon within the company. And it helps you, of course, address cyber threats. It's one of the main concerns for a lot of companies, looking into how much we have more and more incidents. There's an increase in cyber attacks incidents during the past year. So it is a big and one of the main concerns for a lot of companies today. Next slide, please. So for whoever of you already have a certified management system, you already know the benefits of being certified. Even if you don't go for certification and just decide to implement the requirements of both standards, it's important to know that any management system can help you mitigate your risk. It provides you with the framework. It's a structured framework on how to address threats and risks, how to carry out your risk assessment, your risk management. Any management system, when you look at your context and all the needs of your interested parties, you do your risk management properly, it will help you minimize financial losses. It will help you build trust and confidence amongst your clients, which is quite important. It will protect your reputation, of course. And another important thing is that it helps boost employee morale as well. One of the important aspects of business continuity is that life safety comes first. Of course, it's good to protect the business from operations, but if my employees' life is at stake, if there's a situation that's dangerous for employees, that is what is the most important thing, and then trying to resume operations. That's a basic aspect of business continuity, life safety first. Our auditors have the experience by participating in audits. They see good practices that they can share when they audit a company without violating confidentiality as well. And that's something that all our auditors do during the audit. They help you benchmark with other organizations. If I see something good that a company is doing within their management system, I can make suggestions to a client that I'm auditing, giving them examples as well. So come to us for certification and you'll find out how you can benefit from this. Next slide, please. And how can LRQA help you? There's a number of services that we provide that can support you with implementing a management system, going for certification as well. We have a big suite of training courses that have to do with cybersecurity, but also business continuity. We can carry out a gap analysis if you're thinking of going for a certification, and if you're not sure if you're ready, we can always come in and carry out a gap analysis and indicate what you still need to do, or tell you that you're in a good position and you can go ahead with certification. Of course, we carry out assessments in an initial audit to get you certified. Your certification will last for 3 years, and it's an ongoing cycle until you decide to stop certification for any reason. We can carry out integrated assessments as well, meaning that at the same time, we can have a team come in and carry out audits to a number of standards, because we do have integrated auditors. And of course, through Netitude, which belongs to the LRQA group, there's a big number of cybersecurity services that can support you in implementing both ISO 27001 and ISO 22301. Next slide. And I'll hand over for the poll question. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that, Katerina. So let's kick off with our final poll question for today. And that is, what are the biggest challenges your organization faces in maintaining cyber resilience? Please select all that apply. So the first option is limited resources. The second option is integrating new technology. Third option is employee awareness. And the fourth option is regulatory compliance. So we'll leave the poll open for a few seconds for you. So the question is, what are the biggest challenges your organization faces in maintaining cyber resilience? Please select all that apply. So I can see the responses coming in, and we will just leave that poll open just for a few more seconds for you. Okay, so a couple more seconds. And thank you very much. So let's have a look at the results. So we have 66% have said limited resources, 54% have said integrating new technology, 62% have said employee awareness, and 31% have said regulatory compliance. So Katerina or Nick, do you have any comments on the results?
For me, I don't see a big surprise. Employee awareness, that's something that companies always need to focus in. It's a constant process because of the evolving risk landscape. So you need to keep them informed all the time and aware. Constant training and resources. Sometimes, especially with small companies, because I think big companies do provide resources for cyber resilience, but it can be challenges when there are other objectives and directives within a company. I don't know what you think, Nick.
Yeah, an interesting thing. Employee awareness, obviously, you have the end user awareness, but also you have those involved in the ISO 27001, ISO 22301 projects as well. So really understanding the wider implications of undergoing these certifications. I think to me the most interesting one, obviously because it's the largest, is the limited resources. Certainly in the work that I do, is that we've done this loads of times before. We assist companies with the kind of catalyzing the process of certification. So we've got lots of kind of training materials, educational materials, but also reference materials that we use as part of our engagements to really really enhance the kind of speed and process. So making sure you focus on the right things. There's almost like the kind of hand holding through, and that really kind of helps a lot with the limited resources. I think with integrating new technology, that's really interesting, and that really kind of goes on to the technical and legacy debt that I was talking about. That's what we call the heavy lifting, and very much the kind of low-hanging fruit really in terms of this whole process is much more around the employee awareness. So interesting results from the survey. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for participating in all of those polls. So now Katerina and Nick are going to begin answering the questions submitted during today's presentation. As a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane in your attendee control panel. Also, we have had a few questions in regarding sharing the presentation and whether it's being recorded or not. Can confirm that it is, and it will be shared with all registrants within the next couple of days. So let's have a look at our first question. And this is a question for Katerina. So how often should our organization be testing our business continuity plans?
Okay, so there's none of the standards define a time frame that you should do it every year, that you should do it every 6 months. So when you're starting your journey and you've just developed your plans, it's always good practice to test a bit more frequent. Test your plans a bit more frequent, because that helps with raising awareness and participation of people, but it also helps you identify if you need to improve your plans as well based on the results. So I always suggest to clients that testing is more frequent during the first years until you see that everything runs smoothly and you get good results, and then you can always change the frequency. So it's basically up to the company to decide on the frequency. We can just recommend doing more frequent tests at the beginning, and then depending on the results, change the frequency.
Perfect, thank you. So our next question is for Nick, and that is, how can our business stay ahead in terms of cybersecurity preparedness? Are there any key trends we should be aware of for 2024? Oh, you're muted, Nick.
That helps, being unmuted. So really, the key thing is understanding, reading up in the media, and also the kind of cybersecurity kind of news that comes out as to what the latest threats are. There are a lot of vendors who produce the kind of annual threat intelligence report, but really it's all about making sure you keep on top of patching, updating, and vulnerability management. That really is the number one thing, and making sure that you regularly audit your controls, but also you test the resilience of your controls. Tabletop exercises, getting in to do vulnerability management testing, so pen testing, red teaming, and making sure that you have a constant state of vigilance, and making sure that you have good education and awareness to your workforce.
Perfect, thank you. So another question for Katerina here. So how can we foster a culture of continuous improvement in our approach to cyber resilience and business continuity planning?
Okay, so the first thing is being open with everybody within the company, making people aware. Provide training. You can have team meetings where you discuss issues and the outcome of your testing, or the outcome of your incident investigations, involving people in decisions to the extent that they need to be involved, because engaging people is quite important for anything, not only for cyber resilience, for anything within a company. So that's very important. And people, and being good at communicating. I think both myself and Nick said how important communication is. So communicating with people as well, engaging, involving them, training them all the time, rewarding people when they do things good as well. That always helps with fostering a culture like that.
Perfect, thanks, Katerina. Nick, another one for you. How long should my incident response plan be?
Regardless of length, it should be a document that can be easily used in a crisis, and that means you know where the information is, you know what to do with the information, you know how to deal with it. There are quite a few plans I've seen that have easily been 80 to 100 pages long, which with respect is great for auditors and regulators, but in the heat of the moment, it's all about communication with other team members and making sure you have a plan that is easily followed. There's always that military saying that even the best laid plans never survive the first point of contact. Well, at the end of the day, at least have a plan to hit the first point of contact, and then have flexibility in that plan to adjust your response strategy so that you can get to dry land with both feet.
Can I add something? Because Nick said it's great to see an 80-page plan for an auditor. As an auditor, if I saw an 80-page plan, I would really challenge and question if anybody has read an 80-page plan. They usually don't. Yeah, as you said, they need to be practical and be able to be used in a good way. That's for an experienced auditor would tell a company that. Take a look at it and try and improve it.
Great. Okay, thank you. Another one for you, Katerina. How can organizations address cyber risks associated with third-party vendors and their impact on business continuity?
First of all, through the risk management process, when you do detect that you do have risks, then these need to be addressed. SLAs, agreements with the suppliers on what they need to do. Both 27001 has requirements for cascading these type of your requirements in relation to cybersecurity to your supply chain. So these need to be agreed with the suppliers, put in a contractual document in an SLA. you can audit your suppliers to see what type of arrangements they have in place. You can carry out monitoring, but it all comes down to what you have agreed and how you have agreed and where this is documented by both parties.
Wonderful, thank you. Just conscious of time, so I think we'll squeeze in one last question, and that one's for Nick. So please, can you confirm who the best person is within the business to lead on an incident?
I'm going to use that consulting answer. It depends. But ideally, they need to be somebody who can hold the command and respect of their peers, somebody who has clear thinking, and really that's usually down to someone seasoned in the leadership team. But it depends on the crisis. If it's a cyber crisis, don't get the guy who does fire safety leading the incident. Make sure you have the right guy and someone who understands all aspects of the incident as well. Making sure is that you nominate people for that type of incident. So if there's a cyber incident, you go to the cyber person. If there's a business continuity, facilities, and this is the whole point of testing, preparing, and ensuring that you have a good level of resilience. So you understand with that type of run book and playbook that you have what type of incident to respond to.
Great, thank you. So thank you to both Katerina and Nick, and thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar. Once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a survey on the presentation, and we would appreciate it if you would complete that and provide your feedback. You will also receive a follow-up email over the next few days with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. So on behalf of LRQA and our presenters, thank you for joining us today, and please enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.